Lessons Within Strength, episode 2. So once again, like I kind of explained in the last time, this is basically just like a mini episode or a mini lesson, reflecting back on the previous week's guest that we had, and that was obviously Jenna Davies. And it kind of just like the main takeaways that I really like resonated with me from that episode after listening to it and kind of just going through and picking on the certain topics and seeing how that's related to my life, I suppose, over the last couple of weeks or since the episode and diving into that. So as you can see, if you've watching on YouTube, myself and Ziggy, my fluffy golden retriever, are sitting here in the gym. I've just kind of finished for the day. So you may hear me shout at him every now and then when he doesn't know what personal space is. So I apologize for that. But yeah, we've kind of just finished up for the day. It was a bit of a hectic day. I had a good couple of clients this morning. Been working a lot more with more injured clients, I suppose, starting to get more and more serious cases, if you want to call it that, and just trying to reintroduce some form of function around these clients, and just seeing like their perseverance around their training and trying to work with them, trying to get them, back to some form of functional, some form of normality for them, and trying to get them pain-free is kind of just, it ties into the topic that we're going to go into today. And but I think that just before that, we kind of just touch on a few things and unfortunately pay some bills. So first things first, obviously, like I'm kind of talking about now, I obviously have a few coaching spots for online coaching available. Starting in about 2 weeks' time. So if anyone is looking for online coaching, or specifically more around like having any niggles within the gym, or trying to train around any injuries or any problems that you have, that's my wheelhouse, my specialty. I'm pretty good at that, coming from the injured side myself. So I'm specifically looking for people around that realm. So hit me up. I'll link everything in the show notes. And then the last thing that I've kind of aligned myself with a vitamin brand called Bondi Vite. They're an Australian-owned company. They do vitamins. I've been using their magnesium and their omega-3 for like the last 2 months. So what I tend to do is I use their magnesium kind of post-training, and it's a little bit of a different school of thought. So we understand, like, we want to try and like drop the hammer in training as much as we can, and we really trying to pump the accelerator, as you would call it, in training. And I think, from a bit of a prescript way of teaching, and the way we've discussed it is being able to train that like parasympathetic, or being able to pump the brakes. Like, you can only go as fast as you can go if you know when you pump the brakes, like, you're going to stop. So it's like, can you bring yourself from that heightened position, like that high state, if you want to call it, and bring yourself straight down and really get that rest and digest to work. And I find high dosed magnesium post training has really started to help me in terms of that. I track everything on an HRV, so I track everything with my Whoop, and I've seen a dramatic difference in terms of my heart rate variability with that, and being able to really bring myself back down after a really big session. So like I said, like, I've aligned with them. I wouldn't align with a brand that I don't think is good, or it doesn't align with my values. The owner of the company is, himself has himself been through multiple, I think it was ACL injuries, if I remember correctly, playing footy. And he understands injury, he understands S&C, and he's trying to bring the best vitamin brand or best supplement brand in terms of micronutrients to players and athletes in Australia. And his values kind of just line up with mine. So, full disclaimer, obviously I've got a code. I do make commission off of the code, and I'll just be open and honest with you. You can use it, don't use it. It's BV James 15. You can use that at checkout, and you'll get, I think it's 15% off. I can't remember what my commission percentage is, but disclaimer, I do make some kind of money from it, so helps pay the bills, I guess. So that's pretty much the bill paying for now. Excuse me. So yeah, it's been a bit of a week. Been a bit of 2 weeks, I suppose, and reflecting back, I've listened to the podcast with Jenna probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. One, to obviously get this episode on the go, but kind of just, I don't know, been in a bit of a state. I had a really busy 2 weeks. And just trying to put into practice a lot of like what we spoke about. So we obviously spoke about being present or reflectiveness around like your everyday life, or like your actions, and with just events that have occurred in my life over the last 2 weeks specifically, just creating some form of time for myself to reflect on what has happened in the day it's been an interesting experience for me. It's been a difficult experience. Excuse me. Sorry, I got the Rona. It's been a bit of a difficult experience for me, just because I've struggled to be present in my head, and I think I bring this up because I don't think it's something that we can just do or turn on or switch, and be perfect at reflecting. I don't think anyone's perfect at doing reflections. I don't think anyone's perfect at whatever their meditative process is, if that's what you want to call it. And I've struggled. I've really struggled over the last 2 weeks to be still in myself and sit in a room by myself. And that's, like I said, that's got to do with a few factors that's kind of occurred. I've got a bit of family issues and relationship stuff, and ex-relationship stuff, I guess. And just being able to just sit by myself. I say this, sitting in my gym by myself with my dog, and finding it actually quite difficult to sit here today and do this. Excuse me. Just because I don't want to think about the day. I don't want to think about like what has happened or reflect on what has gone through the day, because it just means that like my mind needs to calm down, or my mind needs to be still. And excuse me, geez, like. And it's something that I've probably been struggling with, trying to find that peace of mind. So, like I said, I've been really listening to the podcast again over the last 2 weeks, just trying to pick up the golden nuggets. And obviously the big one was obviously like creating some form of reflection around your day, or being able to be still within your day. Like I've just admitted, like I'm really struggling with that. And the other one is obviously the way in which that Jenna was over to use strength training to overcome adversity, or overcome the problems that she's had in the last year. And it's I find people who take strength training to a certain level, or actually really invest in it, are able to overcome so much more. And whether that's got to do with the discipline around training, or having to find the motivation to keep going, is that's probably one of the main reasons behind it. But it's just that strength training is hard. Strength training is difficult, and I think it relates to life so much in an easy way. And I've seen it with myself, with the guys I used to train back in South Africa with. Like we just were able to kind of get through difficult times because we had kind of gone through hardships ourselves within training. And I know that it sounds very difficult, sounds very cliche, like they would say, like if you can stand up with whatever 100 pounds and 200 pounds on your back, like you can stand up with anything in life. And yes, I suppose that's true, but I don't really want to think about it like that. It's just, training to me has always been an outlet. It's been something to knuckle down with and just excuse me, jeez, like it's been something that I get in, I do what I need to do, and I've always found that being disciplined and being able to just get shit done has just helped me in life, and just helped me really focus my attention levels into life and into the hardships that come with it. Like, I speak about my story about the pain in my hip, and lying in hospital beds and just not being able to function, not being able to do what I needed to do. And I honestly don't think if I had not been through the types of training that I had been, or got involved in the types of training I did, one, I probably wouldn't have had to have the surgeries, and two, I probably wouldn't have been able to overcome them. Just because I was so used to just getting it done. It's like, you just shut up. Like, I used to whine. I'll be 100% honest. And I think if my old training partners ever listen to this, I don't know if they would. I could whine in training cycles. I could really moan. I could really whine, and I could be a little bitch, I guess. And I suppose that's got better. With the injuries that I've overcome, I think my adversity is better, I suppose, or I'm able to just carry on and not bitch and moan as much. I'd probably bitch and moan as much to my partner outside of things than in training at all. I think she could attest to that back in the day. But I always found that no matter what circumstance I was kind of going through, I just had the strength. And yes, like I say, that's got to do with strength training. I've done some stupid shit in my life. I do remember certain training blocks that were a lot more difficult than others, and I know that those training blocks were the ones that prepared me mentally for anything that I could. I specifically remember going through excuse me, two training cycles. One an EMOM of back squats, so every minute on the minute back squats for like some form of density training, I suppose, at the time. And it was just horrific. It was something like 10 reps every minute on the minute for like, it increased by 2 sets every week until I was kind of doing 30 minutes worth of back squats at something like 80 to 100 kilograms. And I was murdered. I was broken. And I remember coming out of that cycle, my squat was pretty good. I had built up a decent work capacity around that, and that's probably the only time I would ever really use that. Now, looking back on it now, it was stupidity in terms of conditioning or whatever it was being used for, to be honest. Knowing what I know now, I would never do that form of work on a barbell. It's just you're looking for trouble. But I remember coming out of that cycle and like just being able to take on the fucking world, because I had done 30 minutes worth of staring down the barrel of just pure death, I suppose. That was the one. And then I did a similar type of thing coming out of my second surgery, I think it was, so my second labrum repair. I obviously couldn't do any lower body movements. I couldn't bench as much as I was. I was benching, 4 days a week or something. In my head, it was a really bright idea to do an EMOM cycle of barbell bent over rows. And it kind of went on for about 2.5 months. And every week I would add, I'd add 2 more sets or 2 more minutes worth. So I started off like 10 by 10 at like 40 kilograms. And then I eventually landed up finishing a brutal cycle. And if Jono ever listens to this, I remember him joining in, or me roping him into my last ever cycle of it, which was 60 minutes worth of 10 reps at 80 kilograms of barbell bent over rows, or dead stop rows, I actually think they were. And I remember having to completely shut off from any and all emotions, and those were the cycles that I know changed my mindset and completely reworked me over and made me stronger in a personal capacity. Because I remember sitting there, and I remember just getting through like round 20 or 21 or something like that, and I was like, I'm a third of the way. I was burning, everything was pumped, everything was jacked. There was probably some hard EDM going on, if I remember correctly. Like, we used to train to some strange music back in the days. And it was mindless, just no thought, just grip the bar, wait for the timer to go off, and every minute or every 60 seconds, like, pump out your 10 reps, grit through the pain, and just get it done. And I remember being sore for probably like a week or so afterwards, and it was just fucked. And the amount of back volume that I put through then was disgusting. And like I think back on it now, and like I've said, it's like I probably would. Well, probably. I probably would do it again just for the shits of it, just to test myself, because I feel like sometimes you do need to kind of put yourself in a position of hell every now and then, depending on how you are emotionally. But the whole point that I'm getting to out of all this is strength training has been my crutch in everything. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's been what's got me through all of my shit in life. It's been what's got me through all of my relationship fuck ups. It's got me through all of my, it's got me to Australia. It's got me to sitting in my little facility or little gym. It's not a facility, it's my double garage, but whatever. It's got me into my space that I created through a pandemic when I should have failed after being fired from a company that I had questioned the values of, and they didn't like that. And I should have failed. I should have not been able to make it. And to be 100% honest, to this day, I'm not 100% sure how it did. But I will say that it comes down to the fact that strength training made me harder and allowed me to overcome any and every obstacle that kind of is in my way. Like, no matter what it is, like, I've got the mental capacity or the fortitude or whatever, the pure dumb luck that, like, I know it will be okay because I've been through so much worse. And, like, I have that saying, I don't know, if you know me, you've probably heard me say it, it's like, it could be worse. And I've said it a few times, and I say it quite a lot, so actually. And I've had a couple people turn around to me and say it's such a negative thing, and it's not. It's got to do with perspective from my side. It's like I come from a place of where this is not possible right now, and especially in the pandemic, especially with the pandemic that's currently going around. Like, I'm blessed to be where I am right now. Like, I'm very thankful every day I wake up. I've got my dog. I'm very thankful I wake up. He's next to me. We're in a safe place. I don't have to worry about sleeping with my gun under my pillow anymore. I don't have to sleep with my rifle next to my bed. And that's not all. It's not all South Africans, to be 100% honest, and there are a few that listen to this, and it's just the industry and the environment that I was in South Africa. Was my standard sleeping pattern. It's like my Glock went under my pillow, my rifle went next to my bed, and my alarm went on for the house, and that was kind of it. Like, I wake up every morning, and like my hand's still under the pillow. It's like I think my gun's there, but it's not, and it's like I'm thankful. Like, I reflect as much as I kind of maybe went into it and I said I don't that much anymore. I've been struggling with it. It's like I reflect every morning when I wake up, and I'm trying to wipe the shit out of my eyes at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, depending on what day I'm having and how I'm starting my day. It's like I reflect by not having to grab my gun and put it in my holster, or not having to pick the rifle up and put it into the safe anymore. It's like those little things are things that I reflect on. It's perspective for me. It's like it could be worse. Like, I wake up every morning, and the first thing I do is I go and take a piss now. Like, instead of waking up in the morning and like grabbing my gun and putting it in a holster and carrying it around with me, it's like, yes, that is me choosing that. I chose to be armed. I chose to, put that type of environment around me. And I'm not saying that that's anything negative, and I'm not saying that's the only way you should do it in South Africa. If you live in South Africa, there are good parts, there are bad parts. But I wasn't going to be a victim, and I chose that. I chose to, protect myself, protect my family, and with that came the consequences of what I'm talking about. It's like I walked around in a sympathetic state 90% of the day, or condition orange is kind of what they would call it. It's like I walked around with a loaded gun on me every single day, constant looking around, like, is this person going to hijack me? Is this person got a gun? Do they have a knife? Like, I coached with a gun. I drove. I did everything in my life had like the subsidy of like I was watching out if something would happen. And yes, that's not healthy. I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying that every South African does that, and not every South African does do that. And again, I'm not making excuses for it. It's like I chose that. I chose that life. I chose that responsibility. I chose that responsibility to be able to do that. And looking back on it now, and like I'm tying this all back into it, it's like my perspective is when I wake up in the morning, it's like I don't have to do that anymore. Like I can be semi-chilled. I can go to a coffee shop and I can sit there and not have to sit there watching where the teller is, or not have to find a table where I can put my back to the wall and make sure that like I'm watching every entrance just in case something happened. Like I still do that, but I don't have to do that. I don't have to sit there and just think about the worst that could happen. I can actually sit there and enjoy my cup of coffee, enjoy my breakfast, whatever I'm eating or doing, and live my life and have fun in the environment that I've been able to put myself into. I have got no idea how I got onto this from the perspective of overcoming from strength training, but anyways, that's kind of where this would take. And if anyone from my labs is listening, they'd kind of understand, like, this is the rabbit hole that we go down. Yeah, oh, fuck. So basically, like I took from the podcast, is like just being able to overcome the situations that you're in, or overcome the situations that you are faced with. And we find that, like strength training, we always find that people that are involved within strength training are always able to, come out of those situations so much better, and just able to kind of keep going and putting one foot in front of the other and just keep it moving forward. So yeah, I think that was the big one for me from that side. And we spoke about, a little bit of like not playing the victim, and I think maybe that's where we can kind of tie into all this as well. And what I was talking about, it's, I chose not to be a victim, and I try and choose every day to not think in a victim mentality. And I think that's where like the saying of like it could be worse comes from as well. It's like I could be in a so much worse situation. I choose not to be. I choose to wake up every morning and try and be happy, or try and reflect on the good things that I have in my environment or in my life. And I think, even if you are in a shit situation, it's like placeboing yourself to think it could be worse. Like it'll do you so much good from that side. And it's like it's something, like I've said through this whole thing, it's like I've been struggling with over the last maybe 2 weeks. Is reflecting and trying to look at my life and trying to look at everything going around me, not in a bad way. Like there's nothing negative, I suppose, from that side. It's just a growth phase, I suppose, that I'm going through. It's just something that I'm dealing with and trying to really work on. So I think, the big takeaways, obviously, it's like strength training allows you or helps you overcome all of your big past, and part of that is like a reflective process, and being able to kind of really look back on your day or look at your actions that you've done and take note of those actions. And it's something that I'm really still trying to master. And I think that's the key thing, is like if you continue to try and master it, you'll always be in a better position versus giving it a go and then giving up. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we'll leave this mini episode for today. I went off in a bit of a tangent. Apologies. But yeah, take it for what it is. Try and implement some form of reflective process. And hopefully you gain something from it. And if not, just remember at the end of the day, it could be worse. It really, really could be. That's it.